In her professional life, this cast member worked as an educational writer and editor for a variety of non-for-profit organizations in the Albany area, many of them health-related. Her poems and memoir pieces have been published in anthologies and heard on NPR stations. Phyllis is a member of the Delmar Writers Group, the Evergreen Poets Workshop, and the Hudson Valley Writers Guild. Today, she reads a very honest account of what it's like to be a family member of someone whose mental illness is all-encompassing. Listen carefully to Phyllis Hillinger, reading more than a pinprick. Her point of view is so important.
Some family members think it might be his fault. After all, Uncle Jerry took uppers and downers, as they were called in the 80s, to survive the pressure of demanding bosses, though he admits to being a bastard of a boss himself, holding his employees to very high standards in the five-star hotels which he helped design and manage. But it's hard to say what part of his cognitive decline is due to his past pills and alcohol, and what part is caused by bad circulation, a bad heart, or just plain bad luck. Nonetheless, 8 years ago at age 72, Jerry began the mental deterioration that has left him in a nursing home, confined to an adjustable bed. His muscles atrophied from disuse, confusion, and lucidity, coming and going. It took Jerry's closest relatives, his 2 sons and 2 nieces, including me, a long time to realize Jerry has some sort of mental illness. It might be part of an underlying systemic illness, but there's no specific medical term for what he has. Initially, we assumed that his frequent falls, which resulted in his breaking ribs and banging his head, might be age-related, but we could not fathom why he failed physical therapy, because he couldn't remember how to use a cane or a walker. We couldn't understand why, before he was bedridden, he was banned from using a motorized scooter, because he thought it was funny to knock people down. We didn't realize he was serious when he told us he threw away his mail, saying, "Why should I pay bills?" Eventually, we recognized that Jerry's inability to think logically meant he could no longer live alone. He'd forget to eat, take his medications, or shower for days. Aides were hired to go into his apartment to help him with everyday tasks. He fired them all. He'd fall again and land in another rehab center where psychiatrists, internists, and physical therapists would reevaluate him. As his body weakened, his mind became a minefield of increasing explosions. His sons decided a nursing home was the safest place. He lived in several until he ended up where he is now, earning his single room because he torments every roommate with insults. My uncle, who rarely swore, now shouts obscenities at family, nurses, anyone who enters his space when he's agitated. "Get the hell out of here, or I'm going to kill you," he says, when what I think he means is, "Please, kill me. I'd do it myself if I could get out of bed." This is my Uncle Jerry, my mother's youngest brother, who, because his parents died young, lived either across the street from me or in my home. Essentially, he's my big brother. I have joyful childhood memories of him and pride in what he accomplished in his life. A world traveler, he was a top executive at high-end hotels in New York City, New Orleans, and San Diego, really around the world. He often set up programs for immigrant employees to learn English and made sure they had big food baskets for Christmas. He could be a really nice guy, generous and compassionate. Not anymore. "What did I do to deserve this?" he asks me. What did he do to deserve being flat on his back in a world as boring as solitary confinement? 4 walls and few visitors. But what Jerry cannot recognize is that he's caustically critical, hurtful to any of us who try and stay in contact. Because he lives 3 hours away from me, my contact is mostly by phone. He can start a call with a benign remark like, "Isn't it a beautiful day?" And then his mood suddenly shifts to nasty remarks about the blankety-blank foreigners who work here. It's unsettling how prejudiced and unpredictable he is. Sometimes he calls multiple times in the same day, asking the same questions, but there are other times when he has total recall. Sometimes he sounds genuinely pleased by a letter I've sent him. But if I share a detail of my happy life, I receive a litany of unwarranted barbs. "How does your husband stand you?" "I bet the dinner you made tastes like crap." If I choose not to answer his calls, the next time he'll ask, "What were you doing that was so important?" Jerry wounds me often. I've also had conversations where Jerry seems lucid and acknowledges that his mind has deteriorated. He'll sound upbeat, glad for the call. On a good day, he answers his phone with the kind of humor he had when he was well. "Kelly's bar, Kelly's not here." I'm happy, thinking we might have a pleasant conversation. "Well, how's Jerry?" I ask. "Same as the last 3 years," he says. "Laid out like a corpse in this fucking bed. I'd like to commit Harry-Carry if I could remember how, but my mind's gone." I avoid a direct reply. Don't they at least get you up for a shower? "Funny you should mention that," Jerry says. 2 days ago, I became nastier than even I thought I could be, and they got me into the shower. It felt wonderful, but when I got out, I was disappointed. There were no flowers, no presents. For a moment, I have no idea what he's talking about, and then I realize he means a party kind of shower. It's my mind that's not here. "I like it when you make me laugh," I say. What I don't say is that it helps me cope with your mental illness. But it's also heartbreaking because somewhere I know there's still a light, a tiny pinprick of who he was, who he'll never be again. Thank you.